Hello and welcome to IAMC Radio and Podcast. Today we're going to explore the top news headlines from March 7th. We've got international tensions, political scandals, military actions, even an accidental bombing.
Yeah, it's a lot to unpack. It's interesting how some of these stories kind of connect with each other.
Yeah, for sure. Conflict and corruption and just wow, the human cost of everything going on.
Yeah.
But let's start with the US and Canada. Things are heating up between them. A big trade war brewing. The U.S. just slapped a 25% tariff on everything coming from Canada. What's going to happen?
Well, this could really hurt both economies. U.S. consumers are probably going to see prices go up on Canadian stuff, and Canada's going to see a drop in exports. It's pretty likely that Canada will retaliate.
Well, they already have. Canada hit back with tariffs of their own on $155 billion worth of American goods.
Right, it's this back and forth that makes it so risky, This could easily become a huge trade war, and nobody wins in that situation.
And it's not just about economics, right? What about the whole Trump and Trudeau thing? It feels very personal.
Oh, absolutely. Trump's comments about Trudeau, calling him Governor Trudeau and saying Canada should just become part of the U.S., well, that just throws gasoline on the fire. That's really disrespectful and definitely hurts the relationship between the countries.
And then there's Trudeau breaking down in tears at that press conference.
Yeah.
Talking about the trade war and that he's probably going to resign. Canada's political scene is about to get very interesting.
Oh, yeah, for sure. An election is coming up, and potential people who could take over, like Mark Carney and Christia Freeland, are waiting to see what happens. Each of them has their own ideas about how to deal with this whole mess, so it's going to be really interesting to see what happens.
All right, let's move over to Nigeria now. The EFCC, the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, is questioning the former Minister of Women's Affairs, Kennedy-Ohanenye. Some serious financial allegations there.
This is a huge deal for Nigeria. They're really trying to fight corruption. Kennedy-Ohanenye is being accused of misusing funds, breaking procurement rules, and diverting over 138 million naira, that's millions of dollars of public money. Her time as minister was controversial from the beginning, and President Tinubu eventually had to let her go.
There are always problems, right? With lawmakers over the ministry's money and the budget.
Yeah, exactly. And this investigation shows just how deep corruption goes in the Nigerian government. It raises questions about accountability and transparency that need to be addressed.
Okay, now for some news from the Nigerian military. They had a big win against Boko Haram.
Yeah, this is a huge victory for the Nigerian army. They took out a key player in Boko Haram, the guy who makes their bombs, Amiral Buma. They also killed 9 other important insurgents during an operation in the Sambisa forest. It was a tough fight. The troops found ammunition and had to disable IEDs that the insurgents left behind.
Sounds incredibly dangerous. Those troops are so brave.
Definitely. This is a big setback for Boko Haram and hopefully a step towards peace in the region.
Sadly, not every military operation is so successful. Let's go to South Korea now, where a training exercise went very wrong. 2 fighter jets accidentally dropped 8 bombs during a live fire drill.
It seems like the bombs were dropped because of a mistake. They put in the wrong coordinates, and they landed in a civilian area. A church and some houses were damaged.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, nobody died, but 15 people were hurt. 2 of them are in serious condition.
It's scary to think about. One resident said the explosion sounded like thunder. I can't imagine the fear and chaos.
Yeah, it's a reminder that even routine exercises can be dangerous. The South Korean Air Force has apologized and promised to help the victims, but I'm sure they'll never forget this.
Okay, back to the war between Russia and Ukraine. There's been a really troubling development. Russia launched a missile attack on a hotel in Kryvyi Rih.
This is just awful. The hotel was being used to house volunteers from Ukraine, the US, and the UK. 4 people were killed and over 30 were injured. President Zelensky confirmed the attack, and they were working all night to rescue people.
It's a reminder of just how devastating this war is and how random these attacks can be. And the fact that there were volunteers from other countries there adds another layer of complexity to this already tense situation.
Yeah. Makes you wonder if they were targeting foreigners on purpose. Could lead to things escalating.
And speaking of adding fuel to the fire, President Trump is planning to revoke the temporary protected status of about 240,000 Ukrainians who came to the U.S. after the invasion.
This is going to be so difficult for those Ukrainians. They came here looking for safety. Many of them got here through programs set up by the Biden administration. If they lose their status, they'll have to go back to Ukraine or face a really uncertain future.
And the timing of this is very suspicious. It comes right after Trump and Zelensky had that public disagreement.
It's hard not to see the connection. You have to wonder, is this some kind of political move? Is it a sign that U.S. foreign policy is changing?
It's complicated, and the impact could be huge, both for the Ukrainians and for the relationship between the U.S. and Ukraine.
You're right. It also sets a precedent for other humanitarian programs, and that could affect a lot of vulnerable people who are looking for safety here in the U.S.
Okay, let's turn to the Middle East, where things are still very tense between Israel and Gaza. President Trump has issued a serious warning to Gaza about those hostages taken by Hamas.
This is a big development in the ceasefire talks that are happening. Trump is saying that if the hostages aren't released, Gaza will be destroyed. He even told the Hamas leaders to run away. That's a very aggressive stance, and it could easily break down the fragile peace that they're trying to build.
And to make things even more complicated, Trump said he fully supports Israel. He's speeding up weapons deliveries and making it very clear that he's on their side.
Supporting your allies is important, of course, but backing Israel so strongly might make them less willing to find a peaceful solution. This is a very unstable situation, and any little thing could set off more violence.
It sounds like those ceasefire negotiations are really on shaky ground.
They are. Israel is demanding the release of all the hostages with no conditions, and Hamas wants the prisoners released from Israeli jails. It's hard to see how they'll find a compromise. It doesn't feel like this truce will last.
And this is all happening while there's a humanitarian crisis going on in Gaza.
Right. The conflict has forced so many people from their homes. There are international aid groups trying to help, but it's hard to get access to the people who need it because of the ongoing fighting. The situation is really bad, and they desperately need a solution.
Well, let's end on a more positive note.
Yeah.
There's some good news from Nigeria. Remember, we were talking about their oil production problems. Things are looking up.
Their crude oil production is up to 1.7 million barrels a day. That's for January.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah, it's a big improvement. You know, they were having a lot of trouble with oil theft and vandalism and security problems, so this is a good sign. It's been steadily increasing since April of last year. Seems like the government's efforts to fix those problems are starting to work.
It's good to hear some good news. But are they back to normal now?
Well, not quite. They're still producing less than they could be. Less than the government was hoping for. That means they're still going to have trouble with revenue and economic growth.
So even the good news comes with some challenges. Kind of like a lot of the stories we talked about today.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. We covered a lot today. Trade wars, scandals, military operations, international conflict. It's a lot to think about. But it shows you how connected everything is in the world. Something that happens on one side of the planet can have a big impact somewhere else.
Well, thanks for helping us understand all of it. You've really explained these complicated events.
It's always interesting to dive into these stories and figure out what's really going on.
And to everyone listening, thank you for joining us for today's exploration of the top news headlines on IAMC Radio and Podcast. We've given you a lot to think about today. As you go about your day, maybe think about this. With so much happening around the world, what role do you play in it all? It's a big question, but it's worth considering. Thanks for listening, and until next time, stay informed.